We are sitting right now with Jeff Hobbs. Jeff, you're the author of The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. First of all, welcome. We're at the Los Angeles Times Book Festival. Great to have you.
Thank you so much. Very special to be here.
Yeah, so this book is a really powerful book. It's a very personal book for you. You'd written another book before this, but this event happened, and it basically, you stopped on what you were doing on a dime and turned your attention to this. First, before we jump into that, if you could tell us a little bit about who Robert Peace was.
Sure. Rob Peace was my roommate and best friend for 4 years in college, and I knew a lot about him. We lived together in a very small space for 4 years. I knew he'd grown up hard in a neighborhood outside Newark, New Jersey, nicknamed Ill-Town. His mother worked very long hours for not much money, mostly in hospital kitchens, and his father was arrested and later convicted for a double homicide when Rob was 7 years old. But that didn't stop his dad from using prison phones to go over his son's homework and instill the importance of penmanship. It was a rough neighborhood, but Rob didn't talk much about that at Yale, and I don't think he was hiding anything out of pride, certainly not shame. I just feel like he didn't feel the need to qualify his presence in New Haven at Yale as some fantastic achievement. I think doing that would have signaled not belonging, and Rob belonged there.
So he grew up in a very tough neighborhood in Newark.
Mm-hmm.
His mom, Jackie, he talked about, is a woman who nurtured her son's brilliance. And he truly was a gifted student. I mean, it came very natural to him at the time. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go to Yale when you're a brilliant child growing up in the neighborhoods that Rob Peace grew up in.
Yeah, it was a very rare and delicate interplay of intelligence and hard work and ambition and the devotion of his mother and the sacrifice of many teachers and also really good luck.
Somehow he was able to straddle that life in Newark that was so different from obviously what was happening at Yale and feel comfortable in a way at Yale. You write in the book a little bit about fronting and the idea of fronting, and that in a way Rob, who you knew so well during those 4 years, was fronting on both sides of the equation.
A little bit.
What's fronting,
it's
first
about
of all?
The idea of authenticity, personal authenticity, which mattered more to Rob than just about anything. We all project different versions of ourselves according to the environment we're in, whether it's college or home or the workplace, dinner with your in-laws. We're constantly tweaking our narratives, and he paid a lot of attention to that. It really aided him, especially when he had to do it himself, which he did. Not long before he died, his good friend Oswaldo, he was looking for jobs, Rob was, and having trouble finding even pretty basic jobs. And Oswaldo said, get a suit, cut your hair, don't mumble, play the role, and Rob had a lot of trouble with that.
We should talk a little bit about how Rob died. Rob came to Yale, succeeded at Yale.
Flourished at Yale.
Did very well in his classes, and was a biochemistry and biophysics.
Yeah, molecular biophysics and biochemistry. About as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. But for whatever reason, went to the precipice of being able to launch into that next phase of his life, leaving those sort of streets of Newark and the idea of where he came from behind, and his, some of the problems that his father had run into. Whole story about his father that we can't talk about now. But he died. He died from a gunshot wound in the basement where he was selling marijuana with what looked to be a rival gang, or a gang that sort of felt like he was on their territory. Why did that happen to Rob? Why, after all that, what do you think it was that caused him to recess back into that world that he came from?
It's still unclear, and I never try to psychoanalyze Rob or speak for him, but he was very attached to his neighborhood. He graduated Yale, and everyone he knew from Yale and from Newark was telling him, don't go back to Newark, you're too good for Newark. And I think that negative charge, that caused a lot of friction, and he didn't see, he sort of had this romantic vision of his life where he could be home with his mother, being with his friends. He was a high school teacher, a very good one. He was voted teacher of the year, and then he also liked to travel. He had this very romantic vision about his life that didn't involve any blueprints that come with, say, a Yale diploma. And as you know from being a reader, a lot of times romance doesn't work out that well in the end.
You knew him really well when you were at Yale, and that period of the book, the 4 years that you were with Rob at Yale, are written from first-hand experience. But you had to research the rest of his life, and this was a person you didn't know, the Rob before Yale and the Rob after that you weren't in touch with as often. Tell me a little bit about that research process and how you went about it.
I had never written nonfiction before and not even read very much nonfiction, so it was clumsy and at times dangerous. But I knew his friends, certainly from Yale, but also a lot of friends from home who had visited fairly often during 4 years. And I started there, and with his mother, I asked for her blessing. I said, a lot of people think there would be value in telling the story of Rob's life, not his death. He had a very wide orbit. His life was very compartmentalized, so that was tricky. But I just went from person to person and was introduced to new people and knocked on doors. Facebook's very easy to use, and tried to just have conversations, not conduct interviews, just sharing stories back and forth. And the research was very special. It was moving most of the time.
So he had such an amazing effect on you to the point where you had started a writing career and you were writing a certain type of book and you had an idea about what you wanted to do. When Rob died, you knew you wanted to write this book. What was it that stopped you and said, I'm going to devote the next several years of your life to this project?
I was working on a novel and I was pretty excited about it and got this news and went to Rob's funeral. It's not as though I went to Rob's funeral thinking I'm going to write a book about Rob. After that funeral, what happened was a community formed of friends from Yale, from Newark, a lot of people just interacting with one another, asking questions, sharing stories, not willing to let this guy go, and I was a part of that. And in the meantime, instead of working on this novel, I found myself in the garage with my dog, sort of writing these personal essays about male friendship and guilt and just memories. And it was just sort of part of a slow wave. And at a certain point, my wife just told me, if you're going to sit here and sulk and do this anyway, then you might as well do it, get out there and do it the hard way and try to make it positive.
When you started to go there and you came out the other end, you knew you were going to tell the story, but you said you didn't want to psychoanalyze or try to make any determinations about why Rob made the decisions he made. What did you learn though when you came out of the other side? I mean, clearly you've devoted to this, you told the story, there's a narrative component to it, but what did you learn from the other side?
I learned a lot about very simple, like basic empathy, and I do carry a lot of guilt thinking back to so many dorm room conversations, dining hall conversations with Rob, where if I'd just been a little less distracted with my own stuff with girls, papers, if I just asked more nuanced questions, asked harder questions that are safer to avoid asking, I would have at least been more aware. And if a lot of people who carry that guilt, if we'd all sort of undertaken the effort and assumed that vulnerability, as 19, 20, 21-year-olds, it's easy to think you might still be around. And it's so easy to lose sight of the power of just awareness and realizing that we don't all experience each moment the same way.
And your own life has taken a turn. You were going down a certain path, and you've taken a different path now for a while at least. How do you think the sort of unexpected nature of this book and the unexpected path you've taken, how has that opened you up to wherever you're life and career might go now.
Oh yeah, there's it's stressful to tell a true story. There's I didn't even realize this when I started, but there's so much power and permanence in the written word, and there's also so much power in engaging with the world. But before this, I was most comfortable again in my garage with my dog, hunched over a notebook or a computer, and it was powerful. Bringing so many people together through the story of Rob, and bringing it to more people. His mom, when I first sat down with her, said her consolation was knowing her son had influenced a lot of people, and this way he gets to keep doing that. And to be a small part of that, I had an awful lot of help, and a lot of people very bravely put themselves forward from all over. To be a part of that orbit has been really, really powerful.
Well, it was powerful for you. It's powerful for the people who've read this book too. It's The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. It's a beautiful book.
Thank you so much. It means
your
a lot.
work means a lot to very many. Jeff Hobbs, really nice to meet you today.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Great to meet you.